afternoon. It is Thursday, December 11th, 2003, and we're here at Shorehaven Manor in Sterling Heights, Michigan with John Baisch, a World War II veteran, along with Joe Hermoge, our videographer, and we have John's wife Iona with us, and my name is Elizabeth Howard, and I'll be conducting the interview today with Mr. Baisch. And so we're all volunteers of RSVP, Joe and I are. And John, if we can get started, please state your name and your birth date for the record.
I'm John Howard Baisch. My birthday is 9/11/18. My birth date, I should say.
Okay. John, you were a member of the Army from 1942 to 1945? Is
Yes.
that right? Okay. And were you drafted or did you enlist?
I was drafted, yes.
Okay. And where were you living at the time?
In Detroit.
In Detroit? Okay. What part of Detroit were you in?
East side.
Okay. Okay. You were drafted into the Army, and do you recall your first days of service, where you went and...
Yes, we were inducted up at Camp Kester, Michigan, and where they took all the vital stats for us. And then they put us on a train. Several days later, put us on a train. Didn't tell us where we were going, but all along the way we were trying to guess where we were going. And we ended up at Fort Riley, Kansas. And all I could think of, yes, a cavalry outfit. What are we going to do? We're going to ride horses? I didn't care for that idea. Anyway, after we got there, they said, well, of course, horses are just kind of, they're not used in combat anymore. They used to be, but not now. They're more for show, I guess. In fact, they were still playing polo there, the officers were, when we got there. At any rate, we were put in the mechanized cavalry, which meant a vehicle was going to replace a horse. And I took my basic training there. It lasted 13 weeks. And after the 13 weeks, the commanding officer called me in to his office. And he said, "Would you be interested in going to officers candidate school?" I said, "Not really." And I've heard some bad stories about 90-day wonders that don't last too long.
90-day wonders? What were those?
Those are kids who went to the officers training school for 90 days.
Oh.
And then right away they'd send them overseas to the battle.
Oh, okay.
So I said, "Oh, no, I just shouldn't stay here." He said, "Okay, you're going to stay and train new recruits as they come in." They cut the time down from 13 months to 8 months because they needed the troops very badly, I guess. So I stayed there 8 months. Every 8 months I'd get a new group in. And of course I had help too. And I was started out as a corporal, and they promoted me to sergeant. At any rate, this kept on for, almost 2 years really. And so I said, "Oh, Lord, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to call up Iona and say, come on out here, we'll get married. You can stay a little while." So we did that in May of 1940. I better remember that. 42.
Okay.
No, it had to be later than that. No, it didn't. That's right. May of 42. And she stayed down there all the time. I was training recruits.
Oh.
In fact, she even got a job in a in a grocery store, wasn't it? Anyway, and so we lived in Outpost, Junction City, Kansas. And I had to get up real early in the morning to make it out to camp readily. Other than that, everything was fine. And then eventually in September of 44, they said, we're going to hook you up. We made up a reconnaissance troop, and we're going to attach you to the 71st Infantry Division, which is quartered in Fort Benning, Georgia. So at the meantime, my wife was pregnant, and I had a furlough before just during the Christmas holidays of 1944, and the 10 days was up, the baby wasn't born yet. I asked for, I called Red Cross he still wasn't born. So I asked for another 3 days, and they said, yes, you can have 3 days, but this is it. You got to go back to Fort Benning. Your outfit's ready to go overseas. Well, the day before, about a day before, I had to leave. And then she went home, of course, or she was at home. And I went back to Fort Benning, Georgia. And by the time we rounded everybody up, it was almost, like it was about January of 45 before we went overseas.
Mm-hmm.
We landed in France, and by that time Germany was, they just finished the Battle of Baisch, and they were thoroughly defeated, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, a lot of them surrendered right then and there, but a lot of them didn't give up. So we crossed France, Alsace, Lorraine, and into Germany, and we tracked the soldiers up in the northern part of Germany, and they were heading south. So the infantry division and our reconnaissance outfit followed them down to the rest of Germany. And once in a while there'd be a firefight. Most of the soldiers wanted to give up. There's some SS troopers, I guess, that wouldn't give up. Anyway, we picked up a gang of prisoners on the way, and they had a holding area for these kind of people, and we dumped them off. I mean, they'd be crawling all over our vehicle. And we finally ended up in Austria, and we went turned west then, and we passed a concentration camp, and apparently the guards had just run away and left the inmates there. And then we met the Russian army coming from the other direction, so the German troops were completely surrounded. And then in May of 45, they surrendered. And then they pulled us back, and that's when they sent us to Augsburg, Germany. We took over German barracks, and we were supposed to stay there until the higher-ups decided what they wanted to do with us. There's still the war with Japan is still going on, so we didn't know whether to go over there or what.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, of course, Japan was defeated, and they released us to go home. And that's the end of my story.
Oh, okay. Okay, and where was Iona during this time?
Home.
Living
Oh.
with my folks.
Oh, okay, you're back home, okay. What were some of your memorable experiences while you were over there in Europe?
Well, one thing I discovered that while we were on the move all the time, and when it got dark, we kind of looked for a place to stay. Sometimes we'd take over a German household. So you go live with your neighbors, we're going to take over this house for the night. And we did this several times. And along the way, I can't remember exactly when, but I went to sleep in a hayloft.
Mm-hmm.
And that night, my jaw started hurting. What the heck's wrong now? Well, I had a terrific toothache. And it was abscessed, of course. My whole front of my face was puffed up. The tooth was in the front of my mouth. And so how am I going to get this fixed? Well, along with a division, they had what they call a field hospital. They had very, very meager supplies or whatever, but in the case of emergency, any place looked good. So we finally caught up with the field hospital, and I wanted to tell them I had this terrific toothache, and of course they could see the abscess was swelling my face. And every time we stopped and went into the field hospital, they get the word they got to move on, the division's moving. So this went on for about 9 days. I was waiting for something to be done. And that's when they said, we're going to give you some penicillin. That's the first time I ever heard of penicillin. That's apparently the first time it was actually in service. And it did the trick. Took the swelling part of my face down, and eventually I had the tooth pulled, of course. And then from there, we crossed the Rhine River into Germany, and chasing the soldiers down some northern part of Germany down to the southern part. And every once in a while, a bunch of the German soldiers would come out of the wood with their hands up. They'd throw their rifles down, and they wanted to be picked up and sent back to prison camp or wherever. Better than fighting a war, I guess. So that's what happened all the way down. And in the meantime, we went through big cities like Nuremberg and Munich, and they were absolutely destroyed. All the big buildings were down. It was a sight to see. I assume from aircraft fire. And then we kept going and ended up across the river into Austria, as I said before, and we turned west, and that's when we saw this concentration camp. It was the guard that ran away and left the poor inmates there. And then we met up with the Russian army coming from the other direction. Shortly after that, Germany surrendered. And that's when we came back to, they sent us back to Augsburg, Germany to await our future destination.
I see. Were there many casualties in your own unit?
3 men were killed. We were riding in these mechanized armored cars, and we had a turret with we had a 75 millimeter artillery piece. We had a 50 caliber machine gun and 30 caliber machine gun, and of course we all had rifles. But in order to see where you were going, we had to stand up in the turret to see what was down the road. And this way, that these three men got killed that way by standing up in the turret. Some sniper shot them in the head. Another place was kind of dangerous, going through these small towns. Most of the buildings were 2-story buildings, and on the lower floor were businesses, and the top floor were the living quarters. You had a sniper up there on that upper floor; they could raise havoc with you. So you had to be careful going through small towns.
Killed one of his best friends.
Pardon?
Killed one of your best friends.
Lost one of your best friends?
Yeah.
Did you? That's too bad. And how did you stay in touch with your family? Did you have a mom and dad back in Detroit, or brothers and sisters, or?
My parents. And, I think my brother was in the service as well. And my sister, I think she was in not yet. She was still in Detroit. Eventually, she got married and lived in Adrian, Michigan. And we had letters back and forth. In fact, I wrote a letter to Iona, and there's something in there that I shouldn't have. So the censors crossed it out. And from then on, I was careful what I would say in my letter.
I see. And do you recall the day that your service ended and you were?
When I was officially home?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, of course, when they brought us back overseas, there was a camp in, I think it was in Pennsylvania, and that's where you got cleared out. You were officially discharged. And I got home, May 30, it was Halloween of 45, October 31st.
And where did you arrive back home at? What part of the United States?
New York City, somewhere.
Oh, New York City.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. And did you, what did you do when you got home?
I kissed her.
Kissed her?
Well, as a matter of fact, on the way from the train station, we took a train to get to Detroit, and her mother and father and her came and with the baby to pick me up. And that's the first time I'd seen the baby outside of him being born in the hospital.
And how old was the baby now by this time?
About 10 months.
Oh, about 10 months.
And I held her in my arms, and she went fast asleep. All the way home, she slept.
She cried all the time, and then when he took her, it was just like he had always been there.
Is that
She
right?
sounds.
Oh, that's wonderful. She was content then. She had her daddy home. Yeah. And did you go on to have more children?
2 more.
Two more children? And,
another girl and a boy.
Uh-huh. And what type of work did you do once you got back here to the States?
Well, I worked for the city at the water department, and eventually I was an accountant. I went to night school, and got my degree in accounting, and that's what I did all the time I worked for them.
And did the GI Bill come in handy for you then for,
As I recall, yes.
yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. And did you, how about close friends that you made while you were there
The
in your
service, you mean?
service? Yeah.
Well, they all went their different ways. We kept in touch with a couple of them by letter, but we never did see them again.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and so you did see some of them though for a short time and,
We've known quite a few of them, we still keep in touch.
That's good. That's good. And do you attend any reunions with any of the people, or do you see any of them now at all, or?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. And is there anything that, how did your service and experiences affect your life at all?
Well, I think it's a good thing for young boys or men. A year in the service would do them a lot of good. You learn to obey orders. You learn how to conduct yourself. In other words, it would do very much good for some of these kids that just go crazy when they get out in the world.
There's certainly a lot of that these days.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if we can maybe show some of your photos and things that you brought here today. And this is your Army ration card. Now, how was this used, John? What your Army?
Oh, that was for when you came home and you wanted to go out shopping. As I recall, I've been told that a lot of things were short supply.
Oh, okay.
Short supply, and people, I guess, could only buy so much. Is that the way it worked, Arnie?
And that had nothing to do with me, honey. That was
Okay.
your ration card.
And this is the fact that I was in the service. I could get more than the civilians could.
Oh, okay. I see.
In fact, I bought a car for my father-in-law. He couldn't get by one because he was a civilian at that time. Cars were scarce. I bought one for him.
And this paper was what again? This was a test?
Pardon?
Was that long paper I read you last night? Is that was a test that you took? Where it showed where all the different signals were, like a cross and a square was a cemetery. And they asked you different questions. You had to give the answer.
This was taken February 28th of 1944 at Fort Riley, Kansas.
I don't remember.
I was reading it to you last night.
What were the questions?
What is located at a certain point? You put cemetery. From your position at CR at Northgate.
You had to write a symbol for each one.
You had to write some sort of a symbol here for different things. When the grid, using a protractor on your map from Northgate, I'm not sure what, but let's put it in there and.
Well, of course, if you wanted to find a position or you wanted to tell somebody where a certain position was, you take what they call
Protractor?
yeah, you take, first of all, you gotta read the, I forget what they call it. You give them the compass reading, so much this way and so much that way, and take it, place that on a map and tell where the area you're talking about.
I see. And so this is a test that you had to take while you were there at Fort Riley then? Uh-huh. I see. Now, I think Iona might have brought us some more photos here that we can,
You wanna,
maybe show.
I don't know whether you wanna show them or not.
Oh, I'll just kind of see what's here.
He started there with it, was getting my pictures.
Mhm.
Then it goes back to Austria. Is it the wrong way?
I don't think so. I just don't want to lose anything here. Oh, can you get any of
Too
those?
many of it on that page.
Oh, we're just gonna put some pictures up here and see if we can flip some pages and. Is there anything you'd like to tell us, John, while we're flipping these pages? Maybe something else you might recall, or whatever you would like to tell a story about. You go right ahead.
He's been blind.
You get some good memories here, don't you? Good memories and
Bad memory.
bad memories, sure. Mhm. Yeah, a lot of bad memories with the war going on. Would you say that all in all, your experience, your Army experience, was a good experience? Would you?
Yeah, I would say it was.
Would you?
Of course, you're always thinking about back home. A lot of people that are still home, they're making good money in the factories, making munitions and parts, and vehicles for the Army or Navy or whatever. And here we are starting out at $20 a month.
Mhm.
Gradually it went up. It never was very, very high. But you had to do your duty.
And how old were you, John, when you went into the service?
23.
23. Oh. What did you do between the time you left high school and went into the service?
I recall it was pretty much during the Depression. Of course, you would remember, but they were graduating from school, from high school in May instead of June. They cut the time down by a month to save money. And I understand they paid a lot of the teachers, or most of them, I guess, in script instead of cash. So I was fortunate just to get anything to do, and I had a lot of odd jobs I did just to earn a few bucks. And then, I got a job in Fort Hospital. And the first job I did there, I run an elevator, taking people up to see their friends or loved ones in the hospital. After I did that for a few months, they put me in the main building, another elevator job. This housed all the doctors' offices, and they had outpatients coming in to see their doctor.
You went to Wayne.
Pardon?
You went to Wayne College.
You went to Wayne, did you?
Well, I went to night school for accounting, and when I got that degree, then I was able to get an office job. And then I got a job in the city of Detroit. I took a civil service exam and passed it, and they hired me for the water department.
Oh, oh, that's good. And when you,
That's where I worked for, I got credit for 35 years service.
I see. For the city of Detroit?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, we're looking at all these pictures here. We see we have Augsburg here, and pictures from Augsburg, Munich. A couple more from Munich here. Oh, I guess that's it. I think I kind of held your book apart a little
Yeah,
here.
it's like it's falling apart. I mean,
It's hard to recall some of the things, you know, it's way, a long time ago.
Okay, and here's your, this was your insignia for your rank on your uniform? Okay. And what was your rank, John?
Oh, I ended up being first sergeant.
First sergeant?
I hit all the ranks in between. I had
Uh-huh.
corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, technical sergeant, first sergeant.
I see. I see. Well, John, is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything that else you can think of that,
Not really.
how did you feel when the war ended?
Well, we were all glad at first.
Mhm.
You know, I had that one.
And were you still in there during the time of the atomic bomb, or
Oh, yeah.
you weren't? And how did you hear about the atomic bomb? Where were you at that time?
We were still in Germany.
Mhm.
We were in Augsburg, and as I said before, we didn't know what they were going to do with us, so we just stayed there in Augsburg since the war ended in May till then they devised a point system to release men. I think it was a point for every year of their service, a point for service in the United States, and a couple of points for service in the overseas. And I think he had to add up to 85 points and they'd send you home. And gradually, of course, they worked that point system down so more people could get out. But they kind of released people in a sort of, I don't know, not a big rush at any one time, but gradually they'd leave some people go. And they'd send them over to some port in, I think it was Le Havre in France, and then you can go from there.
Mhm. I see. Is there anything else I should ask you, or that you would like to add, or you think of anything else?
Not really, they can't.
Where are you on VJ Day? Were you in Germany then?
That was in August, I believe.
Mm-hmm, okay.
Well, we were still there in Germany and
Mhm.
camped at this place in Augsburg. We got that news, of course, everybody was happy.
Mhm. Okay, is there any one thought about your wartime experience that you would want to share with future generations at all?
Well, of course, what's going on now in the world, they're getting their experience too. But I think it's the fact that when your country's in trouble, you gotta, you know, do your part, whether you're either in the service or at home.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Can't think of anything.
Nothing you'd like to add? Okay. Okay, well, we do want
It's
to...
been a long interview. I have trouble remembering some of these things.
he's 85.
Yeah, you did great for 85. You're doing wonderful for 85.
Thank you.
But thank you for sharing your experiences with us today,
Okay.
and we really do appreciate that. And we'll go ahead and sign off now. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
Okay.
So, you all through?
We're all through.
Okay.
It was hard after the war. We had to live with my folks, and there was no place to go. We had no jobs.
Housing was scarce then, sure,
Huh?
yeah. Housing was scarce and
Oh, yeah, housing was scarce and
And
it was
expensive.
expensive. We didn't have a dime,
Mm-hmm.
and we just, and then we had a baby, and my folks were good enough to keep us for a while, but then they got tired of that too.
Yeah.
So we finally got a little, one of those, they were setting up huts, like, what were they called?
Temporary,
Temporary
shelters.
housing, you know.
I
Well, they
think
were
they
just,
put them up during the war for war workers.
Yeah, you say you were from the east side. They had a big section out at Connors there with a lot of the
yeah,
Quonset
well, we
type
weren't
huts.
there, we were in Hamtramck, weren't we?
No, it's, 6 miles or something, I don't know where it was, I think.
It was not brick or anything like that, they were all just,
They devised a point system to release men.
And here's your, this was your insignia for your rank on your uniform? Okay. And what was your rank?